All right, we are in Mark chapter 15, and our last class was on verse 15, so Mark 15, verse 15. We are at the point where they are getting ready to crucify Jesus. He has been before the court, he has been before Pilate. They have released Barabbas. And in verse 15, so Pilate, wanting to gratify the crowd, released Barabbas to them, and he delivered Jesus after he had scourged him to be crucified. And as we spoke last time on this, we can read right over that and not realize what just occurred, that he scourged him to be crucified, that this scourging would be bad enough. The scourging is a horrible form of punishment. It is where you are lashed, you are flogged or whipped almost to the point of death. And unlike, as we made mention I think last time, unlike the Jews who would go 40 stripes minus 1, so 39 stripes. That was the law there. With the Romans, they did not have that law, and they scourged you until they were done. And it was not unheard of for someone to have not made it to be crucified, but died from the scourging alone. Jesus is not killed by the scourging alone, but he would have been basically your back is shredded is what occurs, and anything else it hits would be shredded. And Pilate, this is done, and notice that Pilate wants to gratify the crowd. That's what Pilate is. Pilate is a politician. Pilate is a crafty individual, a very clever individual. He, in a worldly sort of way, and he wants to pacify the crowd so that it doesn't make for more difficulty for him, because he's got to look out for his own career, and he doesn't deliver up Jesus because this is the just thing to do. And he doesn't release Barabbas because it's the just thing to do. He is, for the sake of the crowd, and that you've got a mob that's been worked up, he releases a murderer and takes in Jesus, who Pilate even had to say, he's done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing. And there's no reason for this, but it has the very powerful men of Israel behind it. And they are influential men, and influential enough to where they have riled up the crowd. So Pilate goes along with it. Now we go to verse 16. Then the soldiers led him away into the hall called Praetorium, and they called together the whole garrison. Now, scourging the prisoner, the one who's going to be executed, scourging him before crucifixion is standard. One could expect that. What they're about to do now is not standard. They're making this up as at a whim. They're doing this simply because they want to be cruel. That's the only reason. And they want to be cruel to Jesus. That's the only reason. I have no doubt that these men would have seen plenty come through who are going to be crucified. And they would not show near this kind of cruelty to anybody else, but they are to Jesus. All right, so they called together the whole garrison. Why does the garrison have to be involved in this? That's a lot of men. Why do they have to be involved in this? And they clothed him with purple and twisted a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They're going to begin to mock him. This is not part of the typical punishment. This is particular to Jesus. This is what they're going to do to him. They find this purple, they clothe him in purple. They take the thorns and they're going to make a crown. They're going to put that on his head, and they begin to salute him. Hail, King of the Jews. They knew what that meant. I'm telling you, they knew what that meant. Or at least they knew enough of what that meant. That the King of the Jews, that term, King of the Jews, had a meaning that went beyond Israel. Because the Scriptures went beyond Israel. And we have lots of evidence for that. The biggest one, well, there's quite a number, but the biggest one would be the Septuagint, which was a Greek translation of the Old Testament, and it's translated where? Not in Israel, it's translated in Egypt, in Alexandria, Egypt. That's where it's translated. And so the Scriptures, the Old Testament Scriptures, went far afield, further than sometimes we give it credit, and further, definitely further than Israel. They say, "Hail, King of the Jews." And they struck him on the head with the reed and spat on him and bowed the knee. Bowing the knee, they worshiped him. Bowing the knee, they worshiped him. Now, are they actually worshiping him? No, this is mockery, is what this is. They've called him King of the Jews. They've put purple on him as someone who is royal. Now, as you know, he's king, let's dress him in purple. Where'd they get it? I don't know. It hardly matters. But they dress him in purple, and they worshiped him. And when they had mocked him, they took the purple off him and put his own clothes on him and led him out to crucify him. So they felt inclined that they had to do that first. They felt just compelled that they couldn't just do what their duty was and stick to that. This is extracurricular. This is things that they voluntarily decided to do, and they've got to involve the entire garrison. Why? Why do that? And I will tell you that, and we've discussed it before, that it was not enough for Satan to just kill the Christ. It's not enough for that. That Satan wanted to break him. He wanted to break him, yes, physically, but he also wants to break him psychologically and emotionally and spiritually. He wants to break him however he can. And it's not enough to kill him. It's not enough. And Satan is fully aware of what's going to happen when he kills the Christ. That is, that he's not, his body is dead, but the soul that's in that body is clearly the Son of God. He knows that. Satan is well aware of that. He wouldn't have come to him in places like Matthew chapter 4 to tempt him with things that Satan wouldn't tempt us with, those things, because he knows we can't turn stone into bread. He knows we can't do that. But he knows Christ can, because that's the Christ. And so here we have this garrison of Gentiles, and after he has been scourged, you have this mocking with hitting him and spitting on him. And this mock worship, verse 21. Then they compelled, so they led him out to crucify him. Now understand this next part. Then they compelled a certain man, Simon of a Cyrenian, the father of Alexander and Rufus, as he was coming out of the country and passing by to bear his cross. Okay, now Mark doesn't tell us exactly why this is, but we know why it is. It was customary that the one being executed is the one that bears the cross to where he's going to be executed, where he's going to be crucified. He's the one that's got to bear it. Nobody else is to bear it. He's to bear it. So why is Simon, this man coming out of the country, passing by, he's got nothing to do with anything. Why have him do it? It's because the prisoner, Jesus of Nazareth, no longer has the strength to do it. He's been so bled, he has been so tortured that he doesn't have the physical strength to bear that cross all the way or any further. So they just compel somebody else. The Roman soldiers aren't going to do it. They're not about to do it. They're going to delegate. And here is this fella just passing by. He hasn't been part of this at all. Okay, you're going to do it. Well, okay, well, he's got to do it. And verse 22, and they brought him to the place Golgotha, which is translated place of skull. Now, this is a place outside of Jerusalem, and we don't know exactly where it is, Golgotha, and which is translated place of a skull. And this is one of those places I just want to take a little bit of time because I want everyone to understand. Which is translated place of a skull. Golgotha is an Aramaic name. The New Testament is written in Koine Greek, not Aramaic. It was eventually translated into Aramaic, and there are Aramaic copies of the New Testament, but the original New Testament is written in Koine Greek. Otherwise, this would, and this place and other places where it says, which is, where it will say something in Aramaic, and then say, which is translated, such as Cephas, which is translated a stone. Well, if the original New Testament was written in Aramaic, and that the Greek is only a translation, you would never say which is translated the place of the skull, or which is translated a stone. You would never say that. Otherwise, you'd be saying it to everything. You would just simply translate what was there. But this is originally in Koine Greek, and because this word is an Aramaic word, this place name is an Aramaic word, they're going to, and giving that name in its proper name, and now saying which is translated place of a skull. Verse 23. And this is where he is crucified. Then they gave him wine mingled with myrrh to drink, but he did not take it. He does not want that at all. And when they crucified him, they divided his garments, casting lots for them to determine what every man should take. Okay, so this is a custom. This is not unique to the crucifixion of Christ. This is a custom of the Romans, that the last men there with the prisoner who nail him to the cross, and of course they've got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. They nail him or oversee the nailing, that the prisoner is nailed to the cross. And then the cross has got to be lifted up. Okay? With that last crew, they get what remains of the prisoner that they want, which would be only the clothes he's wearing. That would be it. And they are casting lots for that to see who among them, they're rolling dice is what they are, all right? Who is the one, basically, you could think of it that way, who's the one that's going to get this, all right? I say I'm number 1, you're number 2, you're number 3, you're number 4, number 5, number 6. Okay, so we roll the dice, and what number comes up? Okay, it's number 4. So you get the clothing that's there. This is a custom that was done. Now, and I'm using, a common 6-sided dice. I'm not exactly sure how they did it then in the casting of lots. But Psalm 22 describes this specifically. Verse 18, as we have mentioned before, Psalm 22 is written. Now, it's written by David, a psalm of David, Psalm 22. It's written by him. But this is written as though the one on the cross is writing this psalm, if the one on the cross could write. Well, you can't write while you're nailed to a cross. But this is descriptions of what's going on. And it does start with, my God, why have you forsaken me? Which is what he's going to be saying. He's going to be saying that. And you would have scribes and others that would immediately know, oh, yeah, that's the beginning of Psalm 22. They would immediately know that. They would know he just quoted Psalm 22 up there. Now, would they begin to put things together of, oh, we're watching what Psalm 22 described. We're watching it take place right there. And because they would be. Verse 18, Psalm 22, verse 18, they divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. In the days of David, that wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. Why would somebody divide the clothing of David and cast lots for his clothes? That doesn't make sense. It's not about David. It never was about David. It's about Jesus being crucified. And of course, we can see other parts about this. Verse 16, for dogs have surrounded me. That's poetic talk. The congregation of the wicked has enclosed me. There's that parallelism right there. So we can know, okay, it's not really dogs, it's the congregation of the wicked. They have surrounded me. They've enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. That's getting very, very specific. I can count all my bones. They look and stare at me. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. And so we come to Mark chapter 15, and we see that's precisely what they were doing. And one has to admit, whether you like the Bible or not, believe the Bible or not, you have got to admit it is one unified book. You have got to admit that these things join together extraordinarily well, as though there was one author, even if you don't agree that there is one author, and that author being God. Even if you deny there is a God, you have to agree these things work together as though there was one author, as though Psalm 22 and Mark 15 were written by the same hand, one foreshadowing what's going to happen. That always happens, or usually happens in books, foreshadowing, telling of a particular tale, foreshadowing there. We have that by way of prophecy in Psalm 22. That's precisely what it is, and now being fulfilled precisely in the crucifixion of Christ, as now written by Mark in the book of Mark, but he's not the only one who writes this. We can see more detail, not contradictory detail, but more detail from Matthew, Luke, and John. They all will write about this. So, that we go back to Mark chapter 15. We've looked at verse 24. They're casting lots to determine what every man should take. Take of what? They've divided his garments. And evidently, what he's wearing is good enough for them to cast lots about it. If his garments had just been rags, I'm not sure that they would have cared. That's not much of a point I'm trying to make just that would seem to be the case. And nothing about it whatsoever. And he did have a tunic that was a seamless tunic, and evidently something that would be of some value. Verse 25, now it was the third hour, and they crucified him. Very simple statement. It was the third hour. What's the third hour? It's 9 a.m. That's the time of it. It's 9 a.m., and they've crucified him. So, as we have said, they have broken numerous laws. Not just Pilate and Roman law, but also the Sanhedrin court and Jewish law. Numerous laws have been broken in order to run this through, to crucify Jesus of Nazareth. That all of this took place overnight, and as soon as they could get him to Pilate, they did. And that would have been come morning time. As soon as they could rush him over to Pilate, they did it. And all of this being done from holding their first court at night, and they knew what the verdict was going to be. They knew what the verdict had to be. And it was that he is guilty and he should be put to death. He should be crucified. That's the verdict. And so they run this through. So at 9 a.m., they've done it. At 9 a.m., he's now on the cross. And the inscription of his accusation was written above. Notice this. The inscription of his accusation was written above. The King of the Jews. Now there will be those who do not like the fact that Pilate did this, because it's Pilate that did that. He ordered it. They wanted it taken down, and he wasn't going to take it down. You want him crucified? Okay, fine. That's been done, but that's going along with it. And what I've written, I have written. That's it. Everybody can know what this is about. And the King of the Jews, of which they didn't want him to be seen as King of the Jews, but that he said that he was. They didn't want anyone believing that he was King of the Jews, because there is like we were saying, there is an understanding concerning that term. It's not just he is a Jew and he's king over that nation. The King of the Jews had different implication to it. The King of the Jews meant the Christ. And while the Gentiles could be quite ignorant about such things, there would be some things noted that would be around, that they would, especially those who had been in Israel, stationed in Palestine, or had been around a Jewish community, that the King of the Jews, or had read the Old Testament in Greek, that the King of the Jews had an implication of someone from God. Someone to do a very, very powerful thing. And someone who's going to take away the sins of the world. You could know that. Someone who is here because he is the Son of God. You can know that too. That's not a new concept from the New Testament. Psalm 2 teaches that. That's not the only place. Not by a long shot in the Old Testament. Now, the King of the Jews. Verse 27. With him they also crucified two robbers, one on his right and the other on his left. Now, Mark is not going to make mention of the one on the right. That will be mentioned elsewhere, but Mark doesn't. And it's not important here. It's not important for what Mark is trying to do, or what the Holy Spirit's trying to do through this book of Mark. All right, so the scripture was fulfilled which says, and he was numbered with the transgressors. That's as much as needed to be done in this one. That's as much as needed to be done concerning the two robbers who are crucified with him, one on the right, one on the left. All right, he's in the middle. And just to let you know, this is a fulfillment of Isaiah 53:12. That's being fulfilled here. He's numbered with the transgressors. And those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their head and saying, "Aha, you destroy the temple, you who destroy the temple and build it in 3 days. Save yourself and come down from the cross." All right, you're killing a man. What more do you need to do? You're killing a man. This is beyond cruelty. He's been scourged. He's now put on the cross. You're getting your way. Why do you feel inclined? Why do you feel it necessary that you have to mock him now? He's going to die. He's going to die. You are executing him. Why do you feel like you need to do this? And it is one of those things that we can bring about. I think we were talking about it concerning Peter and his denial of Jesus, that you're saying too much. What do I mean? I mean, you're saying more about yourself than you think you are. You're saying more about your mental state and about the whole situation than you think you are. They want to say he's a blasphemer. All right, let him die like a blasphemer. If he's a blasphemer, let him die like a blasphemer. You've proved the point, he's dying. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. They wag their heads saying, "Ah, you who destroy the temple and build it in 3 days." Actually, they were witnessing it being destroyed. And it would be raised in 3 days. He didn't say he was going to destroy the temple at all. He never said that. And as we made mention concerning the trial, that what kind of accusation is that anyway? Someone who says they're going to personally destroy the temple and personally rebuild it in 3 days. What crime have they committed? What's the crime? Looking at it from an outsider point of view, let's say from a Roman point of view, okay, this man says he's going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Okay, number one, he's not a madman. Okay, number two, all right, he's going to do right by you because he says he's going to rebuild it in 3 days, so what are you complaining about? If he manages to do the one, then he's going to do the other, so he's going to do right. So what's the deal here? Okay, from just from an outsider point of view, this and it's the whole thing is absurd. That as an accusation, that's absurd. And so they say, "All right, you who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross." Well, he's not there to save himself, as he had mentioned. And I think we read this earlier, that of all he had to do is call, and he could have 12 legions of angels. 12 legions there to stop the whole thing, if that's what he wanted to do. Fortunately for us, as the love of God would be this powerful, he goes to the cross for us. He goes to the cross for us. Save yourself and come down from the cross. Likewise, the chief priest also, mocking among themselves with the scribes, said, "He saved others, himself he cannot save." Look at what they're actually admitting. They're going to say more. This is what I mean by they're actually saying more than they intend to. Others he saved. They know Lazarus came back from the dead, and they know that Jesus did it. They know that. Yet they're going to kill him anyway. They also know that there are blind men who now see. They are the deaf that can now hear. lame now walk. That there were dead that aren't dead anymore. There are numerous things that people have witnessed, and it happened to them, of where they can say, yes, I was born blind, and now I can see. And it's all because of Jesus. He saved others, yet himself he cannot save. And they're saying this among themselves. It's almost, no, it's not almost, I think this is precisely what it is. They are trying to calm their own guilt and their own feelings on this matter, and to keep everything in check. We're going to do this with a joke. We're going to do this by mocking the situation. Do you realize how much trouble we're in? Well, okay, to solve that, let me mock a little bit. Let me say, if we have actually put the Messiah on the cross, do you know what that makes us? Well, that's kind of an unsettling thought, isn't it? That you have done this, and there's a punishment that's going to be. There's a punishment. Now, Christ is going to offer them mercy, but they are going to resort to mocking. All right? Himself he cannot save. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, descend now from the cross, that we may see and believe. They are saying way too much here. They just, in their mocking way, called him precisely what they knew him to be. They knew, many of the Pharisees believed that he was the Christ, but they would not confess it because they feared the Jews. They didn't fear the Romans, not in that one. The Romans wouldn't have cared. They feared the Jews. They feared the Sanhedrin court. They feared their fellow Pharisees. They feared other powerful people. But here they say, let the Christ, the King of Israel. They didn't want him being called King of the Jews, but now they're saying it in this mocking way. Let the King of Israel descend now from the cross, that we may see and believe. Even those who were crucified with him reviled him. Now, why are they caught up in this? Now, one of them eventually will stop, and he's going to repent, because he's going to come to the realization, oh, yeah, we're dead too. And he's going to come to the realization that, yeah, you know, I think he also knew this was the Christ. Matter of fact, I know he knew this was the Christ. And these two thieves, they revile him. So verse 33, now when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. So for 3 hours, from 12 p.m., that's noon, to 3 p.m., there is darkness over the land. Now, we can read that and not really realize what it means. Not realize it at all. There is darkness over the land. It became night at 12 noon to 3 in the afternoon. Okay, so it was an eclipse. No, it wasn't an eclipse. And we can know this precisely from knowing the position of the sun. We can easily predict when with position of the sun and moon, we can easily predict and do when there will be a solar eclipse. We can do the same thing. We can do it in the future. We can do it in the past. We can know where there would be solar eclipses and what portion of the earth it would affect. We can know that. And the Romans could do that. The ancient people could do that. It's not hard to do. You can do it. And it did surprise them. There are writings among the Romans who were wondering why it went black, why it went nighttime at noon on this particular day until 3. And we're saying there is, now this is not an eclipse. Aside from the fact, if it were an eclipse, you would see the moon coming into place. You would see it, and things would slowly go dark. It'd be a process of hours, and then come back to light again. That's not what this is. And a full eclipse is never 3 hours. It's only a matter of minutes for a full eclipse anyway. Something darkened the sky completely. All right, there's another one of those signs that something here is greater than the ordinary. That this one on the cross is not just some commoner among Israel that some powerful people hate. It's far more than that. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried out, so this is at 3 p.m. At the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is translated, and this is one of those things, which is translated, he says it in Aramaic, and it gives the direct quote of what he said in Aramaic. Then it says, which is translated, my God, why have you forsaken me? Psalm 22:1. Scribes hearing that, and others, other rabbis, other teachers, hearing that, and perhaps even a lot of common people hearing that would know, I've heard that before. Or, yeah, that's Psalm 22:1. That's Psalm 22:1. He just quoted Psalm 22:1. Why would he do that? Why would he do that at all? Go and look at Psalm 22:1, and you suddenly realize what I'm seeing right there is what I'm reading right here, written by David. That would be a powerful thing. That is a powerful thing. That is a powerful thing. Now, I'm just going to say this, that I have brethren that I have respected who believe that God had in fact forsaken Christ. At that moment in time, he had forsaken Christ. We can go to Psalm 22 and show that he hadn't. That God, as it is usually said, turns his back on Christ at that point, and Christ is saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? I disagree with that. They can say it, and that's fine. But personally, I disagree with that, because I can go to Psalm 22 and see that he didn't do that. He didn't forsake him. God was right there, knowing precisely what was happening, why it was happening, and witnessing it. Witnessing the death of Christ on the cross. Why have you forsaken me? It would be a very strange thing that God, who turned his back on Christ at that point, would inspire a writer 900 years earlier to write the details down. Why would he do that? But we can see from the wording in Psalm 22. Matter of fact, let's just go do it. Let's just go do it. Not that it's terribly important for us today, but just by way of, I've said it often enough, let's just go ahead and look. And so Psalm 22, verse 19, but you, O Lord, do not be far from me. O my strength hastens, O my strength, hasten to help me. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life, from the power of the dog. Save me from the lion's mouth and from the horns of the wild oxen. You have answered me. You have answered me. Forsaken him on the cross? He did not. And I'm coming off a bit emphatic now, but and only because it aggravates me, but nothing more than that. And like I said, I've had brethren that I have respected that believe this, but I don't believe that. I don't. Simply because, now I might, if I didn't have Psalm 22, I might. But I have Psalm 22. Exactly what Jesus is reciting here on the cross. And it is those words that they say, well, that is the proof right there. But it's an expression. It's an expression of, one could say, hyperbole. Maybe not so much hyperbole, but it's an expression of extraordinary grief. Extraordinary grief. And not a statement that God has in fact forsaken him, because we can go and look that he didn't. Verse 35. So we're back to Mark chapter 15, verse 35. Some of those who stood by when they heard that said, "Look, he is calling for Elijah." Now, not everybody understood what he just did. But there are some who stood by who misunderstood what he said. Obviously, Eloi, Eloi, I guess, could sound like Elijah. But they think he's calling for Elijah. Now look what they say. Then some ran and, look, he's calling for Elijah. Then someone ran and filled a sponge full of sour wine, put it to a reed, and offered it to him to drink, saying, "Let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come to take him down." So, I don't think this was said mockingly at all. I think this was said out of curiosity. Hang on a second. Let's see what Elijah does if Elijah comes and takes him down. So, in the mind of some who are there, they think that it's very possible. Okay, look at what's already happened in this. They've already lost the sun for 3 hours. You think that wouldn't be kind of telling? And now we come to the end of that darkness. He's going to die, and they're saying, let us see if Elijah will come down and take him down. Verse 37, and Jesus cried out with a loud voice and breathed his last. Now, something occurs that couldn't be witnessed at Golgotha. But we have notice, we have record that it happened. You would have to be a priest in the temple to know this happened. Then the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Why? This would be demonstration that this is now over. What's over? One, the promise has been fulfilled. Number two, the purpose of Israel, the purpose of the law of Moses has been fulfilled. At this point, it's been fulfilled. And here we have the veil that separates the main part of what we call the inner temple, where the priests do their duties, and no one's allowed in there but priests. Outside, a Jewish man is able to be there, but inside not in. And you have the holiest of all, holy of holies, where the Ark of the Covenant is. That's where this ripped. It was torn in two from top to bottom. All of a sudden, this would be another sign. But those witnessing the cross couldn't know this happened. But any priest that happened to be in the temple could have known immediately. Verse 39, here we have this Roman. So when the centurion who stood opposite him saw that he cried out like this and breathed his last, he said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." He's witnessed everything. This centurion has been overseeing this crucifixion. Was he one of those who was cruel earlier? Yeah, may have been. may have been one of those that mocking him and spitting on him and hitting him and bowing the knee in a mock worship. Maybe he was. But after seeing all these things, it's pointing to one thing. And he says, truly, this man was the Son of God. This shows a difference in heart. A difference in heart of where you have the chief priests and the scribes. They're mocking and doing all these things. But here you have something that the chief priests and the scribes wouldn't want. For someone to suddenly, but in the midst of all this, believe that Jesus is the Christ. They wouldn't want that to happen. They want to get rid of him and everything about him. Remember concerning Psalm 2, why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth take counsel together and the kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against Jehovah and against his Messiah, saying, let us break their bonds and cast away their cords from us. Okay? They want to break those bonds. They want to cast away those cords. They don't want others picking up those bonds or recognizing him as being the Christ. They want to get rid of all this. Now, we've come to our end, and so we'll begin in verse 40, which then takes us to him being put into the tomb. And understand, all this happens very quickly, very rapidly, one thing after another. Nothing was really planned in advance except the plot to kill him. Nothing was really planned in advance. Okay, so when Jesus dies, well, where's he going to be buried? Yeah, that's a good question. Well, it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and happen in one would be an unexpected way that Joseph of Arimathea would be willing to do that, but it's also a fulfillment of prophecy. That his grave, of where his tomb or where his grave would be. And to the point also that you have disciples, specifically women, who want to see, okay, where is he put? Where is he going to be put? Because no one knows. Where Joseph of Arimathea agrees to do it, or to himself. He's determined. He's determined to do it and brings up the courage to ask for the body of Christ, and puts him in his own tomb. But where is that? It's not as though everybody knew where that was. You wouldn't. And so we'll get to this next week, and I thank everybody for being here. And we'll continue with verse 40.